You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Good morning, everyone. Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Inside Automotive right here at CBT News. Continuing the conversation on tariffs, joining me now is David Kain, Senior Advisor at NCM Associates, to share his perspective on what's happening at the Capitol and some of his predictions for things in the auto industry and what we might see down the road here, and kind of get maybe a state of the auto industry from him. So David Kain, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to join us on the show once again. I know a lot of people know you in the industry. In fact, I think everybody knows you in the industry, and they know you as one of the nicest guys in the industry. And of course, I should say too that your family, your dad's a former chairman of NADA, and your brothers run an incredible Ford dealership, a family-run operation. So you bleed oil, and you've been in the car business a long time. Have you seen anything like the tariffs or a situation like this before in the industry?
Well, no, to be quite honest, but certainly you and I have weathered a lot of different storms.
Yeah.
And when you talk about dodging things and the cutback on weather predictors and guys like that are looking at storms on the horizon, I think what we need to do is reapportion that saved money for business predictions so that we can actually sit here and say, what does the future hold for the auto industry?
Yeah.
And when you are as intimately familiar with the business as you and I have, and we've sat in all the chairs at the dealerships, and we appreciate the unique qualities that dealer principals and their leadership teams and their team members bring each and every day to work with them. I think one of the things that they're probably missing right now is we didn't even get to celebrate the NCAA finals because
That's right.
we're powering from the
Yes.
Friday market. And, I remember the days where this business might be slow, but it was predictable.
Yeah.
And, with the power of politics and what it brings into the marketplace, that's something we don't often talk about, because there was, you could study interest rates, you could study the price of gasoline, you could study, maybe freight cars and delivery and delays and
That's right.
things of that nature. Even the chip shortage was at least a commodity shortage that we dealt with over the years. But I think what's really particularly challenging is dealers having to now account for the unpredictability of politics.
Yeah.
And when you look at this international framework for the building of cars, and I'm not an expert when it comes to production and things of that nature, although here in the state of Kentucky, right down the street, we build Ford pickup trucks.
Yeah.
We have the Toyota plant, we have the Corvette plant down in Bowling Green. This is a manufacturing state, and we certainly in Kentucky are open to manufacturing. And I think the reality is it's a fits and starts type proposition.
Yeah.
So when we sit here and I see a spokesperson for the government say, "Oh, we'll just bring the jobs back. We're going to give you a 30-day time and just go re-equip that plant."
That ain't gonna happen. You're talking 6 months to a year, at best.
Yeah, after you mow down the bushes and the railroad tracks and
Right.
stuff that are out of service, this is a complex environment, and I think what I would have rather seen was a more reality-based approach that basically says, "Hey, let's shift this thing forward." Make the investments. And if I'm a business owner, or CEO, or an investor in a manufacturing company, I would like to see, how does this affect the growth?
Yeah.
What's the strategy? Because right now the board members are like watching the news and paying real close attention to it, and they can't really make good decisions. And I can't even imagine what the dealers are going through.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And we're
it's a
seeing
tough.
we're seeing the response from different car manufacturers and OEMs out there. You've got Mercedes-Benz that have announced that, hey, we're going to hold back and not pass this along, this increase to the consumer. You've got Range Rover that said, we're not even shipping, right now to the U.S. And then you've got everything in between. You've got very upset dealers that are saying, what does this mean down the road? In fact, right now, and I've said this many times, we're sitting with about 2 months supply of vehicles out there, maybe 3, depending on the brand. And we just came off of an incredible March, as you know. So dealers are a little drunk on that still, kind of like a COVID hangover. But so maybe they're not feeling the pain right now, and they're just hearing some lip service coming out of the White House about tariffs, but it hasn't really had an impact yet. It hasn't impacted their business negatively, at least not negatively enough for them to go, whoa, what has this done to our traffic flow, to our lead count, to our number of sales at the end of the day, right?
Well, permission to speak candidly.
Yeah.
Our clients are seeing a big slowdown in foot traffic.
They are.
And
Okay.
yeah, and so that is quite notable. So, you come off that March high and you roll into April, that's a big notable difference.
Okay.
And when I walk into showrooms over the last couple of weeks, there was this feeling of uncertainty, and you weren't having the normal dialogue, which is get on the phone, respond to leads, let's engage with the guests. The Q&A is way different, and you've got a guest on the phone that is sitting there saying, well, I've got to wait till my portfolio kind of settles down again. I am.
So they are feeling the pinch.
Yeah, and they're feeling the pain because they're having to shift into a different type of consulting.
Yeah.
Not, is the car safe? Will I get a good trade value down the line?
Yeah.
Should I lease or should I purchase? But it's literally, is there any way to offset the risk? And I think there's a lot of variables that are going to come into play over the next several days.
Yeah, I would agree. So April's been a different story for your clients than March, because I know March was a pretty strong month for them, right? And
March
April
was a good,
because of that deadline, probably of
Yes.
April 2nd or 3rd. Yeah.
Exactly. And then yesterday the markets flew up and everybody was feeling pretty good.
Yep.
And then it was notable that the auto tariffs, as reported, weren't changed.
That's right.
So if you can imagine, and I want to go back, you mentioned my father. One of the things that my dad used to do, and I can't emphasize this enough to your audience, is get to know your local legislators.
Yeah.
They might go into the halls up in D.C., but when they're home, you got to meet with them.
Yeah.
And that's
Good
why
point.
you need to
Very good point.
Yeah, you got to make contributions to your auto lobby and work through your state association.
Yep.
Encourage your state associations, and you've had several of them on over the years to talk about this. Ted down in Florida, Don over in Virginia.
That's right.
And all of those guys are wonderful at promoting the value of the auto industry. And most of your congressional representatives and senators, they've signed the front of checks, meaning that they've been in business before and they understand the dynamics of running a business in an uncertain climate. So you got to have their attention, but you got to support that through your contributions to your political action committees and things of that nature.
Sure.
So,
do you agree at least with the theory or the president's desire to level the playing field with other countries as it relates to the imbalance in tariffs? And is it just a situation of, hey, the execution is terrible here? I mean, is that kind of your stance? Are you saying, let's leave it alone? If it wasn't broken, let's not try to fix it?
So when I served on the Ford Dealer Council in the year 2000, Jerry Reynolds said that all in life is a car deal. And Jerry was the chair of our dealer council. And to some degree, I mean, to 100% degree, he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same point, what I found with negotiation is I can't go freak the customer out and then hope to put them together in a car deal.
Right.
Get them a cup of coffee, settle them down, show them nice views of what the future is going to be in this new
Yeah.
product. And I think, when you go to the art of negotiating and such, I'm more of a uh, framework when it comes to just build coalition
Yeah.
and commonality,
Yeah.
what's best for the common good. And, one can make a case that tariffs are a good leveling of the playing field, and the United States has been unfairly positioned by some of the countries out there.
Hmm.
At the same time, I think we have this huge marketplace that every country wants to put their goods and services into.
Right. Right.
That's already a winning position.
Yeah.
All you need to do if you're an ace negotiator is have a dialogue with them and present that. And you don't have to go to social media, you don't have to put it out there. In fact, the art of diplomacy is not necessarily showing all your cards.
Right.
However, I'm not the president, and I didn't get elected. I didn't have 80 million people vote for me, so I don't have the right to anything other than an opinion. So, I'm like every other person sitting on the sideline. I'm like, God, I hope this works.
Yeah.
Because at this point, the market's really uneasy. Consumers are uneasy. Manufacturers are uneasy. I don't think that's a good environment for anybody.
Yeah.
So, the old adage that the end justifies the mean, I think set that to the side.
Hmm.
Let's handle this the way good negotiations have been handled in the past
Hmm.
and come and make the announcement after you've put the effort into it,
Hmm.
built the relationships, built the trust, because no matter what, whatever the outcome is, particularly if you look at China, we're in a position to where we're going to be back
Yeah.
with them for years and years and years.
Yeah.
So if we blow up any form of a relationship now, I think it challenges what the future could possibly hold.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very good points. Some very good points that you just made there. If I'm an NCM dealer and I call you and I say, David, I got 10 stores. Okay, what can you lend any advice in this area? We have about a 2-month supply of vehicles. What are you telling your clients today from NCM? Do they hold on to sticker price because of the tariffs? Do they do business as usual? Do they negotiate? What's the message that they send out in their marketing to their markets, about the tariff situation? I know it's a loaded question, but what are you telling them?
Well, do you want the right answer? Or do you want me to just guess at something?
The right answer.
Because in this case, there is no right
Right.
answer. It is a guess.
Yeah.
So here's the advice I would give to my buddies. As you know, my brother runs a store.
Yeah.
He's been on your
Sure.
show
Sure.
before. The advice I would give him is build your relationship with your customers. Make sure that all of your team members understand all the dynamics and are able to have a one-to-one counseling session with their customers. When it comes to, do we go over retail? Do we hold at retail? Do we discount it down? I think to some degree, if you follow the lead of your manufacturer, like some of them are going employee pricing and such,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the guide that you got to go by for those. But if I'm a dealer principal, I don't want to be in a situation much like COVID to where I'm going over retail, because what we saw post COVID is
Yeah.
a lot of consumers left those dealerships
Mm-hmm.
after they recognized that they might have paid more than the market really
Yeah.
was available, unless it was a really rare commodity or something
Yeah.
to that
Yeah.
effect. So I think you build for the long term. I wouldn't go over retail. I would certainly be able to justify. I would build to my team and
Mm-hmm.
make sure that they understood, to the customer, we need to explain why we are at retail
Yeah.
and the fact that we're not going over. Some in the market might, but I would hover around that kind of a dynamic
Hmm.
because I think that assures that you're going to have a reasonable profit, not a healthy profit or anything of that nature. I'd also would focus on the back end, those retention tools that build loyalty,
Yeah.
service contracts and the like, and make sure the customer is positioned. Things that concern me, Jim, along that periphery is the percentage of deals that are now going 84-month financing.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge concern in the
Yeah.
industry
No
because
question.
when I was, really deep into it, we were doing 24-month leases at Ford Motor Company
Yeah.
and at our Ford dealership, and bringing the customer back with equity in 2 years.
Yep.
And I think what we've got to do is to be mindful of the business aspects of that and not bury the customer to the extent that they don't want to come back to see us.
I know. But with this increase, there's also another issue which a number of sales or dealers have shared with me, and that is to stay in touch with your teams because they're seeing the same media that the dealers are seeing, and they're getting a little concerned and anxieties raising. If I'm an automotive sales professional, what does my future look like from a personal standpoint, not from the dealership? Should I then be looking around to get into something else, maybe insurance sales or whatever, because maybe car sales will not be the same in 2025 for me that it was in 2024? Are you hearing any of that? And if so, what do you recommend?
Yeah, so fortunately, and I listen a lot. I haven't heard much of that going on.
Yeah.
It might be in the early stages and such. But
Yeah.
the advice I would give is if you are good at your craft and you've spent years building your skill set so that you can sell to a guest, and I always love this guy Eustace Wolfington that ran a company called Half a Car,
Yeah.
and years ago he taught us this adage that says the point of sale is the point of resale.
Hmm.
And one of the things that we habitually don't do when we bring on a new employee is teach them how to stay in the business,
Yeah.
how to build their customer base,
I
how
know.
to build loyalty and such. And
Right.
and dealerships still struggle with this. I was looking at a S&P Global report, and it showed that the loyalty rate, the high line was around 54% in the last several years, and it's down around 51% just for a brand loyalty. And that's a big challenge. But as an individual, I can build that loyalty quotient through maintaining a good relationship with my customers over time. And that's what I would encourage professional or dealerships to really take a professional approach to it. And much like COVID, when they were making all the money
Yeah.
and might spend it before they put anything in investments. But we told them put all your
You,
money in investments, or at least
you,
put a portion of it in
right.
investments. And like, the heck with you, buddy. You told me to put it. Where is it now? So, I think those are things that we need to teach. And some of our progressive dealers are literally bringing in financial advisors
Mm,
to work
great
with their
idea.
teams
Yeah.
to really help them plan for what the future could hold.
Yeah, no question. It's great. It's a great idea because we did see that through COVID, where they were making, selling cars for over sticker price and couldn't get enough of them. And salespeople that were typically selling 8 cars are now selling 16 and 20 cars a month, and it was like shooting fish in a barrel. You know what I mean? You didn't even really have to sell them. But a little different today. I was talking to Jonathan Smoke just before we went on. As you know, he's the chief economist at Cox Automotive, and he said, unlike the COVID situation, our interest rates are 300% higher than they were then. Where everybody, we didn't have a couple of $1 trillion in government handouts to consumers.
Yes.
We didn't see this increase in real estate values. People were taking out all kinds of second mortgages and everything else at 2% loans. And we just don't have that in this particular crisis, right? And he said his anticipation was that it's going to be a different situation than COVID, because I know a lot of people are making that comparison. Oh, this is like COVID when we couldn't get cars, or it was a different, situation. But it's not like COVID.
Yeah, and Jonathan loves music, and,
Oh
and
yeah.
you and I have seen him present multiple times. I would ask him what's his soundtrack for this
So he
most
gave it
current
to
event.
me. He gave me the song, which is "This is the end of the world as we know it." So, so as you know, he's a former DJ or maybe a current DJ, but he gave me that song and he said, "This is it." So we'll have to see.
Well,
Yes,
and he's an optimist, despite the fact that he's also a pragmatist and a realist.
yes,
And I'm glad he brought the humor to the situation.
yeah,
Certainly, it's not the end of the world. We'll
right,
get through this. It's
yeah,
like we always have. Tomorrow we'll wake up. Hopefully, the sun will shine,
that's right.
and we will be okay. I mean, at the end of this, and I don't know what that means, and I think that's part of the frustration is there is no determined end. And
Right.
in 3 months in the car business, and you and I are not spring chickens, we're sitting here going, well, heck, three months is like a minute.
That's
And
exactly right.
ultimately we need to plan for that. So if I'm a plant builder,
Hmm.
I'm sitting here going, well, I love to build plants for my clients, but the price of all the components to build a plant, are all
Oh,
being
that's true.
tariffed. So I can't really provide that. So, we got the right hand and the left hand. I guess I should bring that up. The right hand and the left hand need to speak
Yeah,
and to really understand this. And I think sometimes, when you see government, and what's the old adage that, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. I like that statement to some degree,
yeah,
and now I'm nervous because I don't know,
yeah,
that the government is here to help me if I'm so many consumers. I'm a little worried, and that's the other thing that we've not talked about, Jim, is job loss
yeah.
and taking so many jobs out of the environment.
Hmm.
And I know in the auto industry, if a tech company lays off somebody else historically was sitting there going, "Hey, if anybody was laid off at such and such
Yeah,
company,
that's right.
reach out to us. We need somebody right now."
Yeah,
I don't know, so you got this tug of war between the government and the courts and Elon Musk and all these other things. And it is interesting. The first time we brought up Elon Musk and all of this, weird that guy is on the opposite side of Peter Navarro, and
I
so you
know.
got those kind of bickering things going on.
Yeah,
I would feel much better. I remember with George Bush, George W. Bush, they all said and did the same thing. I mean, there was alignment. Whether you liked him or you didn't like him, at least they all said the same thing, and
that's
there
right.
was not so much
That's right.
bickering. And now I look at, it's almost like a personality contest in government.
Yeah.
And that's troubling to me. And everybody's got to be on a news show
Oh, I
on,
know.
on
Unbelievable.
Sunday. And, it's a lot for consumers to absorb. It's a hell of a lot for businesses and particularly car dealers to absorb.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I feel for my fellow car dealer friends that are out there, our
Yeah.
clients, and all I can say is we'll figure it out.
Hmm.
It's not apparent right now, but you got to communicate, and that's if I can put a little plug in for NCM,
Yeah.
we're educators.
Yeah.
We have these 20 groups since way back in the 40s, 77 years ago.
Yeah.
NCM created the very first 20 group that Henry Ford II actually attended. A couple of weeks ago, I was in
Wow.
Dallas and I presented to that group. And
Wow. It's pretty cool.
there's some of the most intelligent leaders in the auto industry, and they're sitting there figuring it out right now. So
Yeah.
join a 20 group, whichever one you want. It doesn't really matter, but start collaborating with smart people. Watch CBT News. Pay attention to what your legislators are bringing to you, and contribute to your political action committees and support your state
Yep.
associations. That's how we're going to make our voice heard. So.
Amen to all of that, especially the CBT part. But the David Kain, Senior Advisor at NCM Associates, you guys have been doing an incredible job for dealers, like you said, for 77 years. I mean, that you've built you're kind of the gold standard, if you will, for dealer 20 groups out there. So congratulations on all of that, and it's great having you on. Great catching up, and I know a lot of dealers listen to what you have to say about these types of issues. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jim, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You as well. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick. Tariff talks across the auto industry. We're not just reporting, we're leading the conversation. Catch the smartest takes and the sharpest minds only on CBT News.